start in February last year. The war started in 2014, and since 2014, NATO allies have provided support to Ukraine with training, with equipment, so the Ukrainian armed forces were much stronger in 2022 than they were in 2014. And of course that made a huge difference when President Putin decided to attack Ukraine.
Before Donald Trump returned to the White House, the United States was far more involved in the war in Ukraine than previously thought. The New York Times published a major investigation into how Kiev and Washington had been engaged in an unpublicized partnership in intelligence, strategy, planning, and technology for nearly 3 years, a partnership known only to a small circle of American and Allied officials.
Кабан!
According to the New York Times, the American base in Wiesbaden, Germany, provided the Ukrainian armed forces with coordinates of Russian troops on Russian territory. This operation was called Task Force Dragon, and its goal was to offset Russia's advantage in manpower and weapons. Every day, American and Ukrainian military personnel identified priority targets, and intelligence officers studied satellite images, radio emissions, and intercepted communications to find Russian positions, the coordinates of which were then transmitted to the Ukrainian armed forces, the publication says. The Biden administration's red lines have been pushed back, the New York Times writes. Although Washington insisted from the start of the invasion that it was not going to take a direct part in the war, at one point about a dozen American military advisors were in Kiev, the authors of the article claimed. According to them, the group later expanded to 36 people, and the military advisors were allegedly allowed to go to Ukrainian command posts located closer to the battlefields. In 2022, the U.S. Navy headquarters authorized the provision of data to the Ukrainian armed forces for strikes by naval drones against Russian warships, the investigation says. According to the New York Times, the CIA allowed support for Ukrainian operations in the Crimean inlets. The authors also claim that in January of 2024, American and Ukrainian military officers in Wiesbaden jointly planned a campaign using coalition-delivered long-range missiles and Ukrainian drones to attack about 100 Russian military installations in Crimea. According to the New York Times, the summer counteroffensive of the Ukrainian armed forces in 2023 was also the subject of discussions and planning in Wiesbaden, and the failure of the counteroffensive was facilitated by political disagreements in Ukraine. The campaign was meant to give momentum to Ukraine after the triumphs of the first year of the invasion. But after the partners held military exercises in Wiesbaden and agreed on a strategy, in quotations, the plan crashed headlong into Ukrainian politics. According to the publication, the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces, General Valery Zaluzny, supported the plan, the central part of which was an assault in the direction of the southern city of Melitopol, which was supposed to cut off Russian supply lines. However, his rival and subordinate, Colonel General Alexander Syrsky, allegedly had his own plan.